In business today, three things to know. First, Congress begins work on the Keystone Pipeline. In a lame duck session, lawmakers may push through approval. Will the White House throw up a roadblock? Then, retail race. Is all of this talk about shopping exhausting consumers? And will it backfire? And on the arise, we'll meet the creators of an app designed to help you enjoy the nightlife. Arise Xchange starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz. A lame duck session of Congress begins work this week on what may not be a pipe dream anymore. The House is planning to vote to approve the Keystone Pipeline, a $9 billion pipeline that would run from Canada through the U.S. The Senate, still in the control of Democrats until January, could vote next week, setting up a possible showdown with the White House. Myron Ebell is the Competitive Enterprise Institute's Director of Energy and Environmental Studies and is a supporter of the Keystone Pipeline, a frequent guest here to Arise Xchange. Welcome back, Myron. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right, so where do we stand right now with this bill in Congress?
Well, the House has passed the Keystone Pipeline a number of times. This permit has been waiting around since 2007, and President Obama has been trying to delay it to death. So now Harry Reid, the majority leader, soon to be the minority leader of the Senate, has been trying to block a vote on it his entire term as majority leader. Now, as he only has a couple of weeks left, he's rushing to try to save Senator Mary Landrieu.
I was going to ask you that. I mean, no matter what you feel about the Keystone Pipeline, boy, this sounds really cynical because the Democratic senator in Louisiana, Mary Landrieu, who is a supporter of the pipeline, faces a tough runoff, of course, against a Republican competitor.
Yes, she's the chairman of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, so this is her bill. And, she has been very frustrated by the Democratic leadership, her own leaders, because she's gotten very little done since she's been chairman. So this is an attempt to show that she can get things done, and it as you say, it's quite cynical.
And where does the president now stand on this? The president hasn't said yay or nay. He's kind of been delaying it for now 4 or 5 years, I guess. If this bill gets to his desk, what do you think he's going to do?
Well, the clever thing is that if they pass it, if the Senate passes it next Tuesday with 60 votes, and Senator Landrieu is working furiously to find the last couple of votes to get up to 60, then the president doesn't have to sign it or veto it before the runoff election in Louisiana on December 6th. So he could say all kinds of nice things about it, and then after December 6th, he could go ahead and veto it. So I don't know. They're being very cagey at the White House. The president, is now looking not to what is in the national interest, but what he's going to be doing after he's president. And I think really at the end of the day, he doesn't want to do anything to alienate several billionaire Democratic donors like Tom Steyer, who are absolutely opposed to any more oil production in this country.
But on the flip side, if he does veto it, the Canadians are not going to be particularly happy, our largest trading partner.
That's absolutely right. They're our closest ally. We share a multi-thousand-mile border. Our economies are very closely linked. It's just outrageous that this has become a political game played by the Obama administration.
Okay, but let me ask you about the environmental concerns here, that a spill will be monumental, and that is one of the arguments against this, and that the people who are pushing it don't necessarily live in the states that it's going to run through.
These arguments are essentially bogus and made up. Nobody ever complained about pipelines until somebody figured out a few years ago that, hey, these pipelines that cross national borders require presidential approval. The federal regulators regularly approve pipelines. We have tens of thousands of miles of pipelines in this country. As soon as they're built and they're put underground, everybody forgets about them. They work the way they're supposed to. There are no environmental issues here, except the environmental pressure groups have drawn a line in the sand and said, we have to get off oil and gas and coal, and this is, do or die, and we're going to make this a litmus test, a symbolic vote, really.
Yeah, and isn't there concern that if we have more access to oil prices will continue to fall, which makes it a little bit less likely, or less incentivized, if you will, to move off oil as an energy platform?
Sure. A few years ago, the environmental groups were saying we needed to move from coal to natural gas because this country and this continent were running out of natural gas. Now with the shale revolution, we have a 100 or 200 year supply, and now they're waging war on natural gas as well. So yeah, it's a big game here that we're involved in, that the environmental pressure groups try to draw a line in the sand and say, we dare you, and then if their allies in the Democratic Party disobey, then they get angry with them.
Okay, Marvin Ebell from the Competitive Enterprise Institute, as always, thank you.
Thank you.
And speaking of energy, that sector weighed on the markets as oil tumbled further today. Here's a look at the final numbers. The Dow did finish the day up after trading lower for most of it, up 40 points to 17,652. The S&P 500 up just a fraction, and the NASDAQ up a few points as well. Taking a look at some of the top stocks we're watching today, Walmart reporting its first same-store sales growth in 7 quarters. Third quarter's earnings per share of $1.15 beat expectations, and Walmart closing up nearly 5% today. Viacom also reporting quarterly earnings. EPS of $1.71 beat expectations by 2%, boosted by film revenue, and Viacom up nearly 3%. And DreamWorks has received an offer from the toy maker Hasbro to buy the animation studio. The two could merge into a family entertainment company within the next 2 months. DreamWorks closing up 15% to $25.52. A good day for them. Taking a look at commodities, gold up $1.50, but look at that oil number, now below $75 a barrel. Jobless claims in the week ending November 8th increased by 12,000 to a seasonally adjusted 290,000. That's up from a 6-year low last week. And something called the JOLTS report says September saw a drop in job openings to 4.73 million. That's better than the 4.8 million. The markets appear to have taken a timeout after record run-ups earlier this week. Cathy Boyle is with Chapin Hill Advisors to discuss where they may head next and this interesting jobs report. And what's interesting about this jobs report is the number of people who have quit their jobs. What do you read into that?
Well, I think, Andrew, the numbers are not really giving us a real read. If you talk to the average person, they're worried. Everybody seems to know somebody who's out of work, whether they got laid off or whether their children cannot find a job. So there's a whole alternative workforce going on where a lot of people are doing part-time work, alternative work, cash work, and they're not really being recorded.
So are you not impressed by the job growth that we seem to be having month by month? Even with this number of 290,000 or so, it's below the 300,000 that would concern people.
I personally don't trust the numbers. I think there's a little bit of manipulation going on.
A little cooking of the books.
A little cooking of the books. And, you know, when you really talk to real people and you look at how many stores are empty and you look at the average American and what they're talking about, wage growth is limp.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's really the sign here that wage growth isn't really baked into any numbers yet, which does raise some suspicion, and a lot of economists say this, that the Labor Department numbers are simply not reflecting the reality of what's out there.
Right. I mean, what does the administration want? They want you to think that they're doing their job, right?
And for the record, every administration is accused of what you call managing the unemployment numbers. That's nothing new.
Absolutely. But it's critical now because the Fed's been on this thing where, you know, liquidity spigot open, you know, driving, and they have to prove that it's working in some way, shape, or form.
We started to see a little bit of a bump up in wage growth, though. I think the numbers were about 2% or so last quarter.
Yeah, but look at that versus real inflation. And it's not. Consumer discretionary stocks are the second worst performing group this year.
And that's because you think consumers are not shopping.
They're not shopping.
But you know what, if you start seeing this continued drop in oil prices, this we keep saying day after day is a tax rebate to consumers. They take that money and they spend it elsewhere. Are we going to see that effect into the fourth quarter?
I don't know. I don't think people are feeling that secure. You know, there's a wealth effect. When your 401k goes up and your savings go up, you feel rich, and that's part of it. You know, we've driven stocks up, so the average consumer should feel more secure. Debt levels are still very high, and look at how early Black Friday is starting.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Right? We have a guest coming up, how Black Friday is now, you know, a whole black week at this point. So the concern here, though, if you're in the market, then we've had this huge run-up.
Right.
We've had record highs, and now, as I said, we have sort of a timeout going on right now. But if you're saying that consumer spending is not going to come in as good as we expect, we could be in for some trouble in the fourth quarter, maybe.
Well, sure. But, you know, corporate earnings were good. I rode the train in with a guy this morning. We were talking about, he just got laid off in the high yield market, and we're talking about where to go. Bond yields are so low. High yields is compressed, very small yields over Treasury. So rich valuations across the board, but everybody's going into stocks because we're the cleanest, dirty shirt.
There's no bond market, too.
There's nothing for yield.
And we're the clean,
cleanest, dirty shirt.
Yeah, I've heard we're the best-looking house in a completely rundown neighborhood. Speaking of which, let's talk about that rundown neighborhood, which is Europe. At some point, does Europe start to impact us?
Absolutely. At some point, we pay attention to everything that's going on globally. We're just ignoring it for now. The dollar is at a 4.5-year high. Europe relies on China an awful lot for GDP. For their GDP,
Absolutely.
a very large percentage is China. With China slowing down, I mean,
And
commodities
Russia
are
as
already
well.
in the
There's some Russia issues too.
absolutely. But you know, so Russia, they're having problems with, and then China slowing down is going to impact Europe negatively. They're trying to take a page out of the Fed's book and do the liquidity spigot and see if that drives things.
By pumping money into the economy.
Right, but we have double-digit. Look at Greece. It's a disaster.
Now, if you look at all of this, Janet Yellen is no dummy. She knows what's going on with unemployment and wages. What do you think she's going to do?
Well, I think they continue on the path that they've been on, to continue to say, we're here, we're going to moderate things, we're going to keep rates low until the economy begins to pick up. And they might change the numbers they're looking at in terms of, well, we're looking at job growth here, or we're looking at unemployment claims here. I mean, unemployment claims have continued to drop. If you just looked at that as a headline number, you'd think they were doing a great job. Okay. But they're trying to buy time for the economy to pick up. And although corporate earnings were pretty good, a lot of it is really refinancing and being able to cut inventory.
A little bit of a contrarian view of people we've had on this week. That's what makes the world go around. Cathy, as always, thank you so much. Coming up, in the race to the stores, are the psyches of consumers being trampled on? You're watching Arise Exchange.
There is a reason Africa is called the new frontier. What was once potential is now an opportunity ready to be seized. Once revered for our resources, today's wealth lies in our people. People who build the cities that shape the future. People who know an idea in one place means business in another. A generation for whom technology means there are no borders, no boundaries. We are the new lions in a brave new world, kings of the urban jungle. And there's a bank that puts the world in our pocket and the future in our hands. UBA, Africa's global bank.
Last week on Arise Exchange, the nauseating numbers from two iconic brands and whether they have a plan to turn around their businesses. Existing home sales surged to their best numbers. Can the broader markets support that in the real estate business?
When long-term interest rates are low, it's usually a bad sign for the macro economy.
Toys R Us is defending its decision to sell Breaking Bad action figures. The toys come with a detachable sack of cash and a bag of meth. Not real meth, fake meth. Watch this week for more Arise Exchange. Welcome back to Arise Exchange. Analysts say it will be a fight to the finish as retailers pull out all of the stops to get more shoppers into the stores. Black Friday has now been extended into Black Week. For some stores, retailers including Walmart and Target announced greater discounts over a longer period of time. The increased pressure to get in and buy, analysts say, is good for shoppers' psyche and forcing families to make shopping a family event. Greenwood Capital's Walter Todd joins us now on the phone from South Carolina. Walter, welcome to Arise Exchange.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so what do you make of more and more stores opening earlier on Thanksgiving? Does that make a big difference?
Yeah, in terms of the bottom lines of the individual companies, I'm not sure that it matters a whole lot. I mean, consumers have been kind of taught or ingrained to look for these specials and look for these deals, and the retailers on the flip side, so consumers have been waiting to the last minute, actually. They've been shopping later and later heading into Christmas, and the retailers, conversely, are trying to get them to shop earlier and earlier, hence the run to get them out to the stores during Thanksgiving or even earlier in some cases. I mean, Walmart was out this morning saying they were going to be, very aggressive during this holiday season and expected a kind of a highly promotional
Yeah, I'll tell you, we're looking at video right now of people rushing the stores, and I'll tell you, we don't acquit ourselves well when everyone is jammed into the stores trying to buy. Why are people still shopping in the stores to begin with and not just going online? Why is this such a big deal?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, you're definitely seeing, in terms of the market share, you're definitely seeing market share move from the bricks and mortar to the online. But online, on an absolute basis, is still a relatively small portion of retail sales. So I think that trend will continue. But there are people. I'm not one of them. There are people that like to get into the mix and look for these really great deals. They give away 50-inch TV for $100 or whatever it is. So there's a certain section of the population that still likes to mix it up, if you will. And
so, with these stores now open on Thanksgiving, some people are calling this a war on Thanksgiving because the employees, of course, maybe can't, spend Thanksgiving with their families. Yeah, no, it's a great point. I mean, I will not be one of the people in the stores on Thanksgiving. And I do think it's a little, it is a little bit troubling to have the stores open that day when people are supposed to be home with their families. Yeah, and I've said this before, the consumers, we're the ones to blame for the stores being open on Thanksgiving, because if we didn't go, they wouldn't be open. We said at the top of the show, what does this do to the consumer's psyche? Is it ramping up as a shopper? Do you feel that there is increased anxiety by people to get out there and get the best prices? And are we exhausting people with all the advertising, with all of this news about being earlier and earlier? And could that ultimately backfire on the category? Yeah, that's a good question. Perhaps for, again, a certain segment of the population, you could say that. I mean, I think at some point consumers, kind of tune all this out. I mean, at the end of the day, people are in these stores with their smartphones or other devices, kind of comparing prices, finding the best deal. So as much as retailers want to get them in the stores and get them to buy stuff there, if they see a better deal at another store down the road, they're going to go there. So I mean, I don't think it's a huge thing to the psyche of the consumer, but we'll see at the end of the holiday if how it goes. Okay, I want to turn to one other story making news today. Old Navy, I believe, which is part of the Gap chain, has been criticized for charging now for larger sizes for women. What is your reaction to that? There's been a lot of news about this today. I don't know if I should react to that story, but no, it is a little bit of a head scratcher for sure. I mean, not unprecedented. I was telling somebody earlier, the example of taking the same shirt and telling them to a dry cleaner, say it's a women's shirt or a men's shirt, you're going to get charged more for the women's shirt. So we've seen this type of behavior before, but certainly not a good PR move by Old Navy or the Gap. You would think when they sit around the boardroom, sometimes you wonder exactly what are they thinking. My colleague Debbie likes to say they should have known better. Walter Todd with Greenwood Capital, thank you so much. Thank you. All right, time now for our business sticker. Stories making headlines across the nation and the world. There's legal action pending against the makers of millions of recalled airbags. Japan's Takata says it is under criminal investigation by the U.S. after the death toll related to its faulty airbags has reached 5. A New York federal grand jury is now considering criminal charges, and the National Highway Transport Safety Administration has also demanded Takata turn over documents and other evidence by next month. Warren Buffett has agreed to buy battery maker Duracell from Procter & Gamble. Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway set to purchase Duracell for about $4.7 billion in a stock swap deal. The deal is expected to close in the second half of 2015. Income inequality is getting more unequal. The Washington Center for Equitable Growth, a progressive think tank, says that the top 0.1% of income earners control more wealth than the bottom 90% of the population. The report says discrepancies in savings have given the richest 0.1% control of 22% of the wealth as of 2012. That's a level not seen before the Great Depression. And a real estate offer you can't refuse. The mansion where the classic movie The Godfather was filmed is up for auction for about $2.9 million. That's a big markup for the property, which was bought in 2012 for less than $1.7 million, while only exteriors and the backyard actually appear in the movie. The mansion has been renovated to replicate the layout of the movie inside and give the real sense of the Corleone lifestyle. The mansion, by the way, is located in Staten Island. Ahead, if you're New York's mayor, you should probably show up to memorial services on time. And that's why he will be our favorite person of the day. You're next on Xchange.
If I was building my own news network, First thing, I think I'd want high-quality reporters, very educated, intelligent people.
Hello, I'm Francesca Maxime.
I'm Julian Phillips.
I'm Wendy Gillette.
I'm Sophia Song Hai.
I'm Gary Anthony Ramsey. Thank you for joining us here in New York City.
I would like to see more people of color represented in high positions in media.
We've got world-class journalists, veteran journalists who have been in this industry for decades, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes as well.
People need to understand the problems that are going on in the community are much closer than we actually think they are.
Kayla Phillips is one of the shoppers who is suing Barney's, and she is here with her attorney. What is it that you want from them?
Not to judge every African-American person that comes in your store.
Last week on Arise Exchange, a victory lap for Republicans while Democrats lick their wounds.
The Democrats are saying they just didn't have a ground game.
Gold prices fell sharply today as the dollar soared in the wake of the U.S. elections. Zachary Torrance says he tried the Subway diet, and when it failed, he decided that he would rob 4 Subway sandwich shops in 4 days as revenge for his inability to lose weight. Now he will be on a prison diet. Watch this week for more Arise Exchange. Time now for our favorite person of the day, when we pick one person who grabbed our attention, and not for the right reasons. Today, it is New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio for apparently sleeping through a memorial service for victims of an American Airlines accident. Here is the cover of today's New York Post. Wake up, Bill. De Blasio is scheduled to attend a moment of silence for those killed on American Airlines Flight 587, which crashed in Queens 13 years ago, killing 265 people. The plane was heading to the Dominican Republic. But de Blasio arrived so late, he missed the moment of silence, which takes place at the same time every year. Family members of the victims waited as long as they could and eventually started without him. A man who was leading the ceremony publicly said his lateness was, quote, a disgrace. De Blasio blamed an undisclosed illness for his tardiness, saying he had a rough night of sleep and did not get up in time. But the mayor has a habit of being late to just about everything. The New York Observer reports that on average, he arrives to events between 30 minutes and 1 hour behind schedule. And he has said he doesn't mind being late because, quote, he's a very busy person. And he actually told the New York Times in the past that being punctual is a trait of Republicans, which the liberal Democratic mayor has made no secret of disdaining. And so Mayor de Blasio is our favorite person of the day. Coming up, a young entrepreneur is putting the New York City club scene in the palm of your hand. Hey, join me. Let's go to the clubs. I'm Andrew Schmertz. The Rise Exchange comes right back.
If I was building my own network, it would be for the people, by the people. It would be very diverse. It would be with every culture you can think of.
If I was to start my own news network, it would reflect positive and negative within the continents and the countries around the world.
I think that I would be more looking towards young people. If I were to build my own news network, it would look like New York City. Old, young, fresh, hip, classic.
If I was to build my own news network, I would just have people from all over who are very connected and diverse.
If I was to build my own news network, my own world network, I would love a correspondent in every country, every location, every city. I mean, it's kind of unrealistic, but how cool would it be to get local stories from the impoverished country, the impoverished city that we don't know about?
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
Apple unveiled new products today. Did it meet expectations?
Apple stock is up 20%.
The White House says it has proper measures to contain the spread of Ebola. This seems to be, in some ways, exploding. What are officials saying?
We remain focused on working with our partners on the ground to stop the epidemic.
Enhanced measures have been put in place in Africa and the United States.
This is hitting home in a very real way, and I think, we need to be concerned.
Hello and welcome to Arise America. I'm Debbie Turner-Bell.
Didn't make any plans, and now you sort of want a night out on the town? Well, there's an app for that. Live Hotspot NYC is a smartphone app that gives you all the details for a great night out in the big city. JD Awad is the founder of Live Hotspot and is here as our guest on The Arise. Welcome to the program. Your father, by the way, is one of our favorite guests.
Thank you.
So there's no pressure on you at all.
Right.
Here.
I have big shoes to fill.
Tell me a little bit about the app and why did you decide to
So
create it?
Live Hotspot is an app that tells you what's going on in real time in bars and clubs in New York City. We're telling you lines, cover charges, celebrity sightings, music genre, and then we're giving you access into those events through the app.
Okay, so how did you get started? Why did you decide to do this?
Well, I started off in finance, and I had this idea. I was at a dinner one night, and I had run the idea by a friend. What do you think if you had a live feed telling you what was going on at venues before you got to the door? They said it sounded great, so I ended up hiring a Craigslist developer. I launched a blog, and in the first month, we had 100,000 visits. So I left the finance job, and I went full running with this and raised some money from a VC firm.
Okay, so you got some money behind you. So what are the steps then to publicizing this and getting this out there in the marketplace? Right.
Well, a lot of money ends up going to technology. Sure. So you kind of have to figure it out on a grassroots level. Luckily for me, I started off in nightlife. I grew up here, so I had enough connections in the industry to kind of get my the ball rolling, so to speak. And then when the app launched, we did a launch event with one of our partner venues, and there's no competition right now. So that kind of separates us from a lot of the other reservation apps that are out there in the space.
So how do you aggregate all of the content then?
Right.
Is this manually done, or is it scalable where you're having venues sort of pump you the information?
Right. So we're partnered up with groups that are running nights at each venue. And part of the deal is they'll feed us the information, and then in return through our concierge service, we'll send them business. And they get paid how many people come to the venue off bar sales. So we're kind of aggregating all the content for free. And in return, we're sending them business.
Okay, so right now you have about 40,000 downloads,
we do.
Which is impressive for a new app. You don't charge for the app,
we do
so
not.
What is the business model here that's going to make you money?
So venues are now coming to us, and they want featured placement on the app. So on a Friday night, when there's 30 or 40 different venues hosting events, we'll probably aggregate all that list to 10, the top 10. And
so they would pay for a placement.
Well,
but doesn't that run into the credibility though of the app? So if I'm looking at this app and all of a sudden I know that people or groups are paying for higher placement, would that does that worry you about the credibility?
So throughout the day we're featuring the event. So we're saying tonight, Club X is going to have this person, Club Y is going to have that person, and then once midnight strikes, now we're doing the live fees. We're saying there's a line here, the cover charge is $50 or whatnot. So at nighttime, it's objective. During the day, the venues that are paying us, we're featuring their events on the site and the app. And then we're giving you access through our VIP package. So you can cut the line, guaranteed admissions, VIP hosting table, and we're giving you access to these events at a fraction of the cost of what it would be if you went to the door and tried to get on your own.
Do people also provide any feedback, or is it a two-way street where they could say what the events were like?
Right. Well, the major feedback we have right now is on the App Store. We have, I think, 100, 120 positive reviews on the app. We actually send a questionnaire to our concierge members after we provide a service, and everything has been with flying colors. I think the major thing here is that we're trying to get the regular person to get into, the highest end venues or whatever event they want to go to at a reasonable cost.
There are so many apps out there, especially on the Apple Store right now. So how are you going to break through and stand through so you get the app out to the most people possible? And do you think at some point we're kind of in an oversaturated app market?
Right. I think in this space, absolutely, there's definitely oversaturation, but I feel like the majority of the apps in this space are reservations. They want you to buy tables, buy bottles, buy these high spends on the app and commit to that spend before you get to the venue. So we meet with other companies all the time to see if we can do some sort of cross promotion. And literally all they're doing is they want you to download the app, put your credit card information in, and charge you immediately.
What do you think is the exit plan then for you?
Well, we've been
if
contacted.
You want an exit plan. I'm assuming you're having some great nights out doing this app, but at some point you want out.
We've been contacted by groups in other cities that want to roll out a franchising model. I think at the end of the day, if we had a multi-city operation, I would be happy with that. But I think we want to dominate the New York City market before we go into other cities. So if every single person that goes out in New York is using Live Hotspot as a tool to plan their night, I think that
we have about 30 seconds left, but have you thought about going to cities where the nightlife is not so prominent, that people really do need help finding a place?
Not so much, just because more of the feedback that we've gotten up to this point is to hit the major cities that have a nightlife presence. D.C., Miami, L.A., San Diego. So that's kind of on the pipeline right now.
Okay, JD, thank you for stopping by.
Thank you for having me.
On the Arise today. Appreciate it. Tomorrow on Arise Exchange, we will have more on the Keystone Pipeline. The U.S. House is expected to vote. We will bring you the latest developments. Let's take a look at the markets. Once again, the Dow did finish the day up about 40 points to 17,652. Energy stocks, though, weighed on the markets overall as oil has now plunged to below $75 a barrel. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.